to South Korea now, where hundreds of balloons filled with trash and suspected excrement have landed, sent over the border by neighboring North Korea. The balloons, called Gifts of Sincerity by North Korea, have provoked an angry response from Seoul, which called the act dangerous.
Hundreds of these balloons arrived in South Korea overnight and are scattered across the country. They carried trash and what the army said looked like feces, sent across the border by North Korea. It has left locals in Seoul worried.
It
was so creepy and scary that the balloon might have fallen down because North Korea designated a specific target. Everyone was scared at that moment. I wonder what would have happened if there wasn't just rubbish, but viruses or chemicals. I thought war could break out right away. To put it a little strongly, that's how I felt. If this situation worsens, there would be war. Since I clearly don't know how far North Korea will go, I was very anxious.
North Korea has said that the balloons were in retaliation to these inflatables, which were sent by South Korean activists. They contained what North Korean authorities called propaganda leaflets, alongside USB sticks with K-pop content. South Korea has called this latest act dangerous. It has deployed its military to inspect and collect these bags of filth from across the country.
Edward Howell is a lecturer in politics at the University of Oxford and the Korea Foundation Fellow at Chatham House. Edward, good to see you. Let's dive right into this rather bizarre story. Is this the first time this has happened?
Good evening. This is a very strange incident, but it's not completely unheard of in the sense that North Korea did give some form of warning from a speech by the Vice Minister for Defense. And what's interesting here is that this is not the first time that we've seen North Korea say it will do something to South Korea. We only have to go back to 2020 when North Korea said it would blow up the Inter-Korean Liaison Office, and it did. It's particularly strange in terms of the contents of the balloon, but what we see is that North Korea really is wanting to take a more provocative stance on South Korea now.
North Korea's leadership says that this is in retaliation for South Korea sending balloons from their side, and that it might just be the beginning. Why do you think we're seeing this happen now?
So North Korea has never responded well to South Korean groups sending anti-DPRK leaflets containing USB sticks of South Korean movies, for instance, across the border. What we're seeing now, though, is earlier this year, North Korea has made a very concerted change of policy towards South Korea. Kim Jong-un has moved away from reunifying the peninsula as a goal, and what we're seeing is North Korea recognize South Korea as its ultimate foe, its ultimate adversary. So even though we haven't seen any signs of actual war, we are seeing North Korea escalate its provocations, particularly low-level provocations like this, relatively speaking, to South Korea.
How is South Korea likely to respond? We heard a woman in our report there who was expressing fear that this might lead to an all-out war. Is that a likely scenario?
I think we need to remember that Kim Jong-un knows that an all-out war, not least a war involving nuclear weapons or missiles, would lead to the ultimate destruction of his regime and his state. That said, we should not be complacent. And I think this sets the precedent for the types of provocations that we might see between North Korea and South Korea. The question about biological weapons as well is always one that's quite unknown. We know that North Korea has tried to make biological weapons, but very little is known about it. We know in the past, though, that North Korea does have chemical weapons. So I think we need to be very wary about Pyongyang's development of other types of capabilities, not just nuclear weapons.
How far do you think Kim Jong-un is currently willing to escalate?
I think that Kim Jong-un has a host of domestic issues within the country, but Kim Jong-un has made very clear, and he made very clear 3 years ago, that he wants to accelerate the development of North Korea's conventional and unconventional capabilities. And we are witnessing this, particularly with the spy satellite launch that failed earlier in the week. I think Kim Jong-un, however, is still very keen to portray South Korea as North Korea's ultimate enemy, in addition to the United States, and also maintain domestic control over his population. So there are both international and domestic level factors influencing Kim Jong-un's decisions here.
Edward Howell of the University of Oxford, thank you so much for this insight.